This weekend, Andy's doing virtual busy work, Ryan is stacking beds, and we become the hero in Not-Hyrule. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andy.
And this is Weekend Rental, episode 188. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Andy, what's been going on since we last recorded?
Not really anything at all. I just got home from the movies.
Oh, what movie?
Yeah, took all the kids to a movie, and I think this might be the first time all six of us have been in the theater together, which is weird. I couldn't think of a previous time. And it
sounds incredibly expensive.
It's Tuesday night. It's $5. Not bad. We went to the Wild Robot, which is a new DreamWorks animated movie, definitely aimed at kids, and but you can definitely tell it's made by the people that did the Puss in Boots, the last Puss in Boots movie.
Okay,
it's kind of got the same type of like brushwork art style.
I've heard nothing about this movie. Is it like just like going under the radar, or
no? I think
just launch.
I think it's doing pretty well. I think.
Okay.
My son, they read the book in class last year.
Oh,
and he's been pretty much obsessed with this movie coming out. So it was time to go to the theater and actually see a movie for once.
So is it about a wild robot, or what is the premise?
Yeah, so that's what's impressive. The movie starts with just like right away, it's just like a robot that gets shipwrecked onto this island. And it's just basically like a robot, he's going around asking all the animals what tasks he can complete, and
they don't understand him, or can they? Okay, I was like, if this is going to take a turn where they speak, then I'm out.
Well, okay. What is impressive for the first like 15 minutes, it's almost no dialogue. There's a few lines that the robot says, but there is almost no dialogue, which is impressive for a kid's movie to just, have something like that. And it keeps the action going. Eventually the robot sits down and goes into learning mode. So he learns how to speak all of the animals' languages.
Okay. I think I'm off of this premise now.
What surprised me was that they handle, for most of the movie, they handle nature as nature. It's basically saying like, no, these animals eat each other. Like it's nature. It's not happy-go-lucky, friend time.
Sure.
Until it becomes happy-go-lucky friend time toward the end, but.
Well, nobody eats robots, at least, so he was safe, I'm assuming.
Yep. Yeah. But pretty good movie. It's about parenting and stuff like that. It's kind of like an Ugly Duckling type storyline to it too. So
sounds interesting. I mean, if it's DreamWorks, it's got to be at least halfway decent. They've never really made a bad animated movie.
Yeah.
I can live without Shrek, but
the first Shrek is all right. Then it kind of devolves into this. And that's kind of what I'm worried about. I was like, this is like a perfect movie about, it's got themes about parenting, how a robot becomes a parent and stuff like that, And knowing kids' movies, it's like, okay, well, how are they going to turn this into a franchise? And it's like, that defeats the purpose of this whole story to me.
But it started out as a book, you say, though, so maybe they won't bastardize it because they have like source material or what?
That's what I thought, but then I found out they made 2 more books about it. So I'm sure if this does well, it's going to keep going.
Yeah, that's disappointing to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'll check that out at some point in our household, or at least some of us will. So I think it actually might even be on our Plex server already. Now that I think about it, I just didn't realize it was a DreamWorks thing or know anything about it.
Yeah. Interesting. It's got good music, good artwork, good art style. It's really good for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there hasn't been a lot of like big AAA kids movie. I mean, Inside Out too, obviously, but like really this year doesn't seem like there's been a ton. You know, it's kind of like always the staple was there was always like 2 or 3 kids movies in theaters, and now it's like you get maybe 5 a year. I don't know. They're worth a damn anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you start counting the Despicable Me's fours and, and stuff like that, where
Right.
it's just too much of those. But
Well, that's cool though. At least you get to take a whole gang out.
mhm.
How many bathroom runs did you have to do?
0, and
That's impressive.
my wife ordered large sodas for some reason, and they are very like they are like the big gulp things,
Right.
And there's 3 of them. The kids drank 2 of them pretty much by themselves, I would say. So I'm surprised
Wow. Yeah.
they made it all the way through.
That is impressive. Yeah, my kids always get the large size ices now, and then the argument is always like, no, leave the damn lid on. You don't need to take the freaking lid off. Like my daughter's probably okay at this age, but my son, I can still totally see him dumping that whole thing down his pants.
Yeah. Well, that's better than just having the straw in there and then you're just like sucking up air, just trying to get any little bit of icy that you can out of the bottom.
Yeah, making all that noise. Then
Yeah.
inevitably like hitting like one chunk that will like go up the straw and then choking yourself and coughing for 30 seconds. It's a real problem in the theater. It's not an icy is not a great solution for children.
No.
Well, I also watched a movie, not in
Yeah.
theaters. Well, I mean, it technically was still in theaters when I watched it, probably, but I watched that Borderlands movie.
I would be surprised if that's in any theaters
Yeah,
anymore.
that's probably
the way
true. That's gone by now. This is like right after we recorded, I watched it, but yeah, even then it was really
Okay.
gone. I've played, very little of the Borderlands games. I can say that this is not as bad as Metacritic and like reviewers would have you believe. It is a very stupid, I don't need to go back to it movie, but it's fine. You just want to watch
Yep.
ridiculous characters and shit go boom. You could do worse. I mean, do I remember most of what the plot was? Fuck no. I kind of vaguely remember a couple of the characters, but mostly just because their story or stereotypes and tie-ins back to the games. But it was okay. I mean, I can see why people would be upset with it, and I guess I don't. It captured the essence of the world and like the zaniness of it, but I was never really invested in the universe or like how the story is supposed to be. So maybe that's where some of the gamers fell off, but it was fine.
Yeah.
My wife sat through it with me and had no idea it was based on a video game. And she's like, it was
really?
all
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
So I don't know. Not good, but not awful.
Was in the games, the Claptrap is constantly talking and annoying.
Yeah.
Is that in this movie?
He doesn't
Jack Black
have as
just kinda talking
much
the whole time?
screen time. They definitely continue with like he's just like this piece of shit that you like kick down a hole. Like they literally kick him down a hole in the movie. You like stare, like right out of the game. Like that kind of stuff keeps happening. And he does like constantly try to pretend like he's part of the crew. And they're just like, why is this dude still here? But yeah, I don't know. It was fine. And there's a lot of like they're rushing through stuff and not explaining like the world and all that stuff too much. But I feel like even if you're a casual person, I don't know if they needed to, because it's just like, okay, this is like a post-apocalyptic type game. Like we know like the basic stereotypes and stuff you're gonna run into in this sort of thing. And I don't know. It was all right. A little convoluted, like
honestly
storyline.
and it's surprising that even was like they went with characters from the game,
Right.
It's like you could easily see somebody having a script for some post-apocalypse thing like Mad Max, like ripoff or something, and then they're like, "Well, let's just get a
Right.
Borderlands license and
Yeah.
do it."
And they could have just done the whole like Jumanji thing where it's like the universe is set up and like how hard would it have been for them to treat you like you were or how you're treated in the game where you're just like a new bounty hunter. You know what I mean? Like Yeah, they could have just stuck anybody in the world, and the world could have been the premise. Leave
Yeah.
everything else out of it. Like they,
Yeah.
okay, you have a claptrap, but then after that, who cares? So,
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
I
I'd
mean,
say if you have a passing interest, watch this thing. I I would say if you bought it physically, you're a moron. But I mean, it's maybe a better investment than Concord, but I don't know.
yeah, I'll probably I'll check it out at some point. I'm sure it'll be on the streaming thing of some sort
Yeah,
rather soon.
who is it? A Paramount thing? I forget who made it.
Oh, okay.
It might,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know,
know.
but yeah, I'm sure it'll be streaming soon. I did watch though, and I'll just segue because it's the only other thing I watched. Was I finished that season 2 of Rings of Power? That is real good. That is some real good Lord of the Rings stuff, and the way that wraps up, and the season finale, and whether or not they choose to continue it, don't think they'd need to. It ended in a very nice spot, so very much like that show. I wasn't as hard on the first season as most people, but I think there's a lot in the second season to really appreciate. So,
Okay.
and they spend a lot of time like intricately weaving like the story and the deceit of like Sauron and like how he kind of like worms his way back into Middle Earth, and it's it's really neat. And there's
Oh,
a big fight at the end, which is cool. So,
oh yeah. I do need to get to that. That's one of those where I think I'm just going to start watching it. It's always one of those like, well, does, Amanda want to watch this or not? Do I have to wait for her to be around?
yeah.
But I think I'm just going to watch it. Um I did that recently with I think you watched Barry, right?
Yeah. Yep, I finished that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just finished all of that, and that's kind of a wild the way that last season goes. It's I don't know how you wrap it up that way.
I
How
just
you
love
wrap
that.
it up, but
I love that ending too. It's just like, oh wow. It's just
yeah.
it's like his reaction. It's so funny. Yeah, that
Yep.
show is unbelievable. So good though. I think like
Yeah.
that, talk about a show that like knows exactly when it should have stopped.
Yep,
And,
exactly.
and that was the show, and they went out in a wild, wild way.
And for to have to bring Fonzie to a
Yes.
point where he's not a joke. Like I mean he's kind of a joke in that universe, but
Right.
he's a good actor in what he's playing in there compared
Yeah,
to most other roles he does.
he's a great character. I that the wife girlfriend character. I always like every time she was on screen, I was just irritated with that her actress. I mean, she's a good actress, but she's just such an unlikable character. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and to be honest, like that show is less about Barry and it's mostly the Hank show by the end. So,
Right.
Hank is the best character by far.
Oh yeah. It's weird that they can make something so serious and then just have like jokes about like Dave and Buster's and like that being like just like integrated where it makes sense in that world too.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Uh, and then like I still love the was it season 2 or 3 where they had just like that one-off episode with like the weird like ninja kid who's just like kicking the shit at everybody. It's so great. Yeah. I started watching The Boys too after you started talking about it, and I was like, I should probably get into that. And we've watched like 3 episodes, but then I'm like, I have to be in the right mood to revisit that because again, it's another like Mad Men type show where it's just like I hate everyone, and I
Oh
need
yeah.
to be in a mood where I'm okay with being depressed at humanity and this universe. So working our way through.
Yeah. They usually have like one or two just fun episodes sprinkled in
I'm hoping to
each
get
season.
there. We just saw the invisible guy get blown up from the inside. I think that's where we ended up. So doesn't seem like a
Yeah.
good way to go.
No, there's a lot of gore, a lot of people blowing up in that
Yeah.
show.
Which is the funniest part because like it would happen, but they never talk about it in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Uh,
It's funny.
yeah.
Well, it looks like you've been back to your Beat Saber ripoff, huh?
Oh yeah. I I've turned my uh, Quest into developer mode,
Oh,
so I
nice.
can do
So you've been sideloading
some
stuff.
dirty deeds. Yep.
Nice,
Um, I think there's 300 and some songs that I loaded on there now.
sweet.
For the game is Synth Riders. And yeah, it's too many, but it's fun. There's a lot of good, just like good songs in there, and people who map them do really well on a lot of them. Um, and then there's some just good jokes too. There's people do theme songs of songs and or just like conversations from shows as a match track. It's weird, um, but
But pretty good for
yeah,
free
got a whole
content.
right. Yeah, I have like a whole catalog of Electric Callboys
Ooh,
songs in
that's
there.
the.
Yeah.
Why isn't there an Electric Callboy cross Beat Saber pack?
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
needs to
And it
happen.
works pretty good. Yeah.
I could see that. Huh. And I assume there's like thousands more songs out there that you could be just like throwing in.
There is, but there's so much stuff. Listen, I'm old now. So there's a whole like probably 2 generations of like pop music and stuff that I'm just like don't know what any of this is.
Sure.
Is this anime? Is this a Bitcoin miner? I don't know what this thing is, So I usually stay away from there's a lot of stuff on there, but I got most of the stuff I recognize. And then some, boring stuff that Amanda likes. So,
Mm,
you know,
Imagine Dragons.
yes, that was the exact thing I was going to say.
I'll help you out. That way you don't have to get in trouble. That's cool. I like the idea of like a Beat Saber type game where you can just like a la carte, like take user generated content and throw it in there. Very
Yep.
questionably, but still you're
Yeah.
able to do it. It is amazing how easy it is to throw the quest into developer mode. I
Mhm.
never took the time to go through it and do it with ours because kind of fell off of it. But like, yeah, it's like so straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, it still adds to the feeling that you're on the Wild West where nobody
Right.
is paying attention to this at all,
Right. The only person paying attention is Meta, and they're not selling that information to anybody.
Right. They don't really care. They're
I
like,
was
hey,
gonna,
just do whatever you want.
tell you too. I'm sure you may have noticed or not, but like Targets right now are like clearancing the shit out of Quest 3 stuff. Like carrying
Oh,
cases and
really?
accessories are like 70% off. So keep an eye
I'll
out.
have to take a look at that.
Might be able to get
I
a good
suppose because
battery for cheap.
yeah, they went on sale everywhere, like approximately 31 days after I purchased
Yeah.
mine at full price.
That's gonna
So
happen,
that's
right?
how that goes. Yep. So
Is
there's
that
a new thing
because
coming out.
they want to sell some for the holiday season, or do you think that there's a new version coming out?
There is. It's a Quest 3S, I think it's called.
See, I don't
A
like
little
these
bit
new
cheaper version.
iterations because every time they make a new iteration, it just makes me wonder like how much longer will my Quest 2 function for? But
Yeah.
I guess we've had it for 3 years already, so I've had a good run.
I I don't think so because the vast majority of stuff still on there is like stuff that was running on original Oculus stuff, I feel like.
Really? So you don't think there's a whole lot
So
that actually requires the new hardware?
I don't think so. There's not a lot of like stuff that I've seen graphically that's like really pushing it to the point where like, oh, this is, maybe the resolution's more, but it's still
Sure.
like the textures are just not great on most of those games.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still that thing where it's like it's very rare to find a person who wants to do something new, intelligent, and intuitive in that market when you know that your odds of making any money are just abysmal.
Right. Right. And there's the ones that are on there that you never even heard about. So we have the Quest Plus thing for the year, right? It's
Hmm.
kind of like a Game Pass thing. This month there's one called I don't know what it's called, but it's a Alice in Wonderland thing,
Okay.
and basically it's Alice kind of wandering through little dioramas, and you move like the dioramas closer and closer to you, and it keeps going down in a spiral, like you're going down a well,
Oh, that's
and you keep
trippy.
moving it farther and farther down. So
Okay.
like the level just keeps going and it goes and goes, and you can like look up and you can see the very first room you were in way up there.
That's
And
cool.
I mean, you could travel up there and look up there. It's really cool idea.
But it's just an experience, not a game kind of thing.
No, it's a
Oh,
game.
there's
So you
okay.
yeah, it's like controlling Alice in you know a bunch of different like little dollhouse dioramas,
I like
like
it.
Mad Hatter and all that stuff. So yeah, it's not bad. It's a
Yeah.
cool idea. I don't know if it's something that holds the attention for hours and hours, but
All you need is like an hour and a half, I think, for a decent
mhm,
VR experience.
yeah. And I did check out the videos. They got some good documentaries in like 3D.
Oh, really? Okay. Like free to
Um,
watch or with your
yep,
pass?
yep,
Okay.
yep. No, I think it's just free all the way around. The one I watched the other night was, basically like what Mount Everest and stuff like that. People who live around there and what they do, and then like climbing up the mountain and just like I'm not sure how they like film it because some of the stuff is like really windy, so it's not a drone. I wouldn't think,
Just
but you're
strap
just
a
kind of
helmet to
like,
a Sherpa and say good luck, I'm sure.
but you're like where you are standing in a lot of those shots is like way off the cliff.
Oh,
You're
really?
just kind of like you're just kind of like in open air, open space. Like look down, it's way down there,
That's
and
wild.
you're watching a guy climb.
Huh. But it kind of puts you
And
in
then
the
you,
experience.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and then it's one of those things where it's weird because you think of Mount Everest as a kid is like, oh my gosh, that's impossible to climb, right? In a
Hmm.
lot of respects, it is because the last 1,000 or 2,000 miles or feet are just like incredibly dangerous. But there is so many people up there all the time now. It's almost like a tourist destination. A lot of the
Well,
base camps,
yeah.
there's just like hundreds of people, and it just looks like a visitor center. It's like hell.
I was reading something about how there's just like so much like death and risk between like the staging camp and like the first base camp over like the glacial field that they're talking about building like a permanent bridge now to like make
Oh,
sure people
okay.
won't have to cross. So like that lets you know like how much money people are. I mean, obviously you could say it's commercialized, but I mean, really, it's just billionaires paying for
Hmm.
experiences, right? But like you, I mean, that must let you know like how much money people are willing to throw at the experience to justify the cost and something like that. Like that's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Like
And
even
then
if you had the money, like I don't understand the mindset. Like why? Like the
yeah,
chance of you like dying horribly or coming back with like permanent digits or other parts of your body lost just sounds awful.
yeah. The one guy on this trek was trying to go up there without oxygen, which apparently only like just over 100 people have ever done.
Right.
So it's just like stupid. Why? What's the point? I don't understand it. And then you look at those guides and you feel bad for them because that's exactly what it is. It's just these rich people who come and fly
Oh
into
yeah.
town and be like, I'm going to climb this mountain. And then these guides have to be like, hey, dumbass, take this seriously, do
Right.
this. And I'm sure all these rich people are like, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. And
Well, yeah, it's just so exploitative too, from like, the Nepalese people and the Sherpas and yeah, like they're
Mhm.
making a wage, but they're probably what thousands of US dollars a year, if that they get to take home to support their families and like have a better than average chance of dying than virtually anyone on the planet. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just it's
Yeah.
gross. It's really
Yeah.
gross. I don't know.
Yeah. And for one that's that dangerous. I mean, you can
Yeah.
go to Colorado and drive up a mountain and see
Yeah.
it.
And I get it. It's an amazing achievement. And like, the human race is like predicated on like, we can do the impossible. Let's do it. Hurrah. But like what it's turned into is just, I don't know. That's not good for a lot of reasons.
No, no.
But now you don't
We're
have
not
to
supposed to
go
be up
because
there.
you've been there. So you
Yeah,
lived
I
it.
bet I've seen what's at the top.
And you made
can
it
see a long
without
ways.
oxygen. You're one of the 100.
Yeah. They did interview these people who are just like skiers out there, and they're just like, we just go up there and they're just bombing these mountains, like
Oh,
fresh
really?
powder, no idea what's underneath. They're just like, we go down with as least amount of turns as possible, just bombing these things. It's like, holy shit.
Then you hit like a crevasse or like a frozen body and like that's it for you. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Interesting. I mean, that part I could see being kind of appealing. Like, don't go all the way to the top, but like get to like a nice snow field and like hiking, skiing.
Yep.
Always seemed like a cool thing to do. But yeah, that's such a better payoff
like
too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you work for a few hours, like gruelingly up a hill, but you get like this nice 20-minute shot down a mountain. That's worth it.
Yeah, but it just came across as like somebody who was trying to commit suicide but didn't want to do it to themselves. So they were just like,
Right.
if it happens, it happens type of deal.
Yeah, the no turn rule seems a little not great. That's funny. It's like taking a toddler, young kid skiing for the first time or snowboarding. All they do is like point and go, and you're like, that doesn't work. They learn quick.
Do that. Yeah.
Well, I had some updates to some hardware I have too. So that Legends Pinball HD that I've had for a few years now. They launched that 4K line. Was it earlier this year or late last year? And it's kind of been like met with lukewarm reception. They've got not the best emulation. It sounds like they're still trying to work all that out. There's some latency issues. And that started with them doing like themed tables. So they got the Adams Family and some other ones. I think there might be like a Peanuts one. But anyway, like once that rolled out, At Games kind of just acted like the HD stuff didn't exist anymore as far as like supporting it. So there's really been like nothing coming out for it. And every year around this time, they do Owners Appreciation Month, which is October, it must be, because I just got the email. And they threw us a bone and they put out a new pack of pinball tables. It's the Natural History Museum Volume 2, which the first volume, there's some pretty damn good tables. Anything designed specifically with the digital table in mind tends to play better than stuff adapted, or at least it's more interesting in a lot of ways. What I did think was shitty though was it was part of their sale for the owners month. And it was supposed to be $35, but it was down to $25 if you were a 4K purchaser. But if you just have the HD one like I do, it's $25 with no discount at all. So I'm like, come on, what are we doing here? Like,
wow.
Come on. Like I couldn't get $5 off. And then what really pissed me off was they added a login interface, because it's been over a year since I've had to buy anything because I've owned everything that they put out. They added a login interface, which makes sense, to their store. So you had to create a username and password or whatever, right? So I follow the link from the Owners Month email, Owners Appreciation email, to the new tables, right? Throw them in my cart. I can't buy them until I register. So it makes me register. And then it lets me into my cart and I buy it, right? And then the motherfuckers send you an email in the back end that says, congratulations, thanks for signing up for our digital store. Here's a $5 off your next purchase one-time use coupon that only works if you don't make a purchase before you use this. So they send you free $5 and you're already fucked out of it. It's like,
wow.
It's like immediately invalidated if you purchase before using. I'm like, oh my God, I hate you guys so much. Like, no discount. You dangle a coupon in front of me that damn well I'm already there. why would I go back to my email? So,
That's oh wow.
n-
That's
yeah,
pretty shady.
not a great experience. And I had to go through the whole usual thing of like trying to redeem it on my table and their, whole connection and like redemption system being the most archaic, like log in, press the right button to make sure that you have the redemption code option pop up, punch in this 12-digit redemption code with the dashes. Don't leave the dashes out like most places. And then the entire time I'm doing that, it's just constantly kicking me from the store. So it literally took me like 12 logins to get the thing to stay logged in and redeem. And I don't know. I guess I'm kind of glad that this is maybe the last thing that will ever be offered on this thing because such a stupid system. The tables are fun. I'm not complaining about more tables. They're good, but well, it's not much of an owner's appreciation month when that's the shenanigans you're pulling with your rinky dink operation.
Yeah.
Uh,
The marketing guy there you might have to have a word with that guy because
yeah.
his funnel's a little messed up.
Well, and I like that they like require login now for purchases, but it would have been nice if they had implemented that from the beginning. That way I'd have like
Mhm.
an account with a history of all my purchase. I mean, granted, I still have a login on the other end, but I don't know.
Hmm.
Frustrating. So
I haven't used my arcade sticks in a long time either. I should try those out again and see if anything changed.
yeah, you got that all set up on mine to do like the X arcade and stuff, and I just haven't done much. It's down in my basement. I don't go in my basement anymore, which is my game room, which means I don't go in my game room anymore, which is also true. But I think if it was out in my garage arcade, I'd use it more. But
Hmm.
I don't know. It's too nice of a piece of hardware to keep out in the garage. Just an arcade one up can sit out there just fine, but this thing's a little more
Yeah.
sophisticated. So, and I got kids constantly popping in and out, smashing on buttons out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my fun. It was real great.
I'm I'm looking to see if one goes on crazy clearance
I found
this year.
one
But
in Mayville. Someone had listed it for $300, and by the time I
okay.
clicked on it to share links, it was already gone. Well,
Oh
actually, that's
wow.
not true. I sent it to my one buddy who lives in Grand Forks. I was like, "You should drive and get this like immediately." It was like three hundred
Hmm.
dollars cash. You come pick up now, and I was like, "That's a good deal." So yeah,
Huh.
but I don't think they sell the HD anymore. But you'd think at some point, like a Costco or somebody would get some in, and then just be like, "These aren't moving. We're just going to slash the
Yeah.
prices." Because the new ones are way too much. When you're paying $1,300 for a digital one, and it's not going to be the greatest experience, like just buy a like 80s Williams table and put a little work into it. At that point,
Right. Yeah.
I've
I
been
just I
scouring marketplaces trying to find actual pinball because like I just want to own a real table.
yeah. They're tough to find, and the ones that are really expensive.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because I mean, anything decent is like the old ones, where there's not much going on in them.
right, golden era, and like some of the ones I've seen were like pre paddle or pre flipper, and I'm like, well, at that
Yep.
point, like a lot of the golden era where you have flippers, it's like okay, well, the game is to keep it in the upper part as long as you can, but once it drops down, you're almost hopeless. Like those tables aren't that fun either.
Yeah.
It's like
And they're super slow too.
yeah, yeah. One of these days, I still kick myself because way back I mean, over 10 years ago now, there was like a marketplace deal, and the guy had two tables. They weren't working. I think he's asking like 250. Like they worked, everything lit up. It just like the ball return and stuff wasn't functioning. Should have just bought them both and
Mm-hmm.
had them be projects because I'm sure they're worth triple that now, even in the same condition. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I bet you'll come across one pretty soon. That seems like a very like lakes area thing for like somebody to put in like a game room and then sell once they're moving or
Yeah.
selling lake houses.
There's a number of like resorts that have them, and they're just like still there, So you
Right.
kind of wait for them to be like, okay,
Maybe
this thing's
that's an
always
angle
broken, or
that nobody's tried yet. Maybe this next summer we just like or wait until like that they're gonna have to do renovations and repairs. So we'll go in like April when they're still trying to get things dusted off and be like, hey, want to sell some pinball tables? Use a few bucks to like fix that dock out there.
Yeah.
Could work. Find, the
Yep.
mom and pop ones that are like really struggling, which is all of them.
Yeah. I think it was a rough year for resorts. At least the
Yeah.
ones I've seen around here.
Yeah. Considering all the money they lost going in the spring by not having like ice fishing season and
Hmm.
yeah, pretty, pretty interesting year for outdoor stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What is your
Let's get into
tog shop? What's it?
Zelda.
Well, what's the TGC or TCG shop thing? I'm curious on that.
Okay, so have you seen these games that are like store simulators? They're just like grocery store simulator, or
Sure. Yeah, I've been playing a mini
there's
mart one actually. That's really stupid.
yeah, this is one of those. It's very stupid too, and it's you're basically running like a game store where it's like cards and board games and stuff like that. And I played it for a couple days, and then I find it. It was one of those where I just felt gross after a while. You're just like, this. What am I doing? I'm just doing work. Like I'm looking at the shelves and being like, what do I need to buy for stock?
Yeah.
I got to ring up these guys and like give them their change. It's like, what? I don't.
Yeah.
What am I
It
doing?
sounds exactly like that mini mart one that I was doing because it was just I thought there would be like a growth evolution to it, but it was just like, no, you fully expanded your store and now you're just like taking to go orders out to the cars. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I got like 6 hours into it and was just like, I need to put this down. It's funny.
Well, I don't understand why they're like. I mean, it got me. I
Yeah.
played it, like, but when you sit down and boil it down, I don't understand how it's so popular because these are like crazy popular now.
Yeah. And they're literally just making you do mundane. It's just like I think why they work and why they hook you until you realize like you're disgusted by it is because they're just always throwing the next thing at you, right? Like you never
Yeah.
have time to stop and think about like why you're doing it. It's just by the
Hmm.
time you throw something on the shelf, like you said, somebody needs to be like rung up, and then like you got to like go put creamer in the dairy machine, and yeah,
Yeah.
and then 2 hours go by, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yep.
It's bad.
Exactly. This one does have a pretty funny thing in it where a lot of your customers stink really bad, just
Oh,
like like a well-known reputation of the standard Magic the Gathering player.
basement dweller. Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically have to buy air fresheners that spray like mist at them when they walk through the door. Otherwise, the rest of the people around, the rest of your customers get angry.
That's horrific and hilarious all at the same time.
Yeah.
What did you find
Do
this
you
on?
think though?
Steam or what?
I think it was on Steam.
Okay.
But then I started thinking, is there a movie rental equivalent, like a Blockbuster, run a Blockbuster?
Oh. Somebody's had to build that, right? At least in like a
I
VR space.
probably, yeah.
Because I bet somebody in Rec Room even has that built.
Yeah. Well, for doing Kmart's, we're doing a Blockbuster. I know that's got to be out there.
It'd be so cool too. You could like Photoshop your own like movie covers and stuff and posters.
Right.
Be
Right.
amazing. Yes. Well, if you can't find one, I think that's your next mission with your now cracked Meta Quest 3 is to build that in whatever platform you see fit. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would download that and jump in.
Yep. Role play as a.
Yeah, take it super seriously.
Yep. Yeah.
And just make sure like everyone who returns like, sorry, you didn't rewind, or like
Yeah.
you're 2 days late, because they have no way to fact check you. Just harassing everyone in your shop.
Or, hey, asshole, I know you're just burning these discs. You're bringing them back.
So funny. I still remember when my cousin was running one of those Blockbusters and I had like that movie pass thing. I was like, do you guys, I'm like, I need to know, do you guys monitor and report that to anybody? Because I'm coming in and like copying 4 movies a day, right? He's like, I don't think it goes anywhere. I was like, okay, good. Good to know.
Yep.
And they're all bankrupt
that was
in 18 months anyway.
Yeah, that was the main reason all of those closed down, is because there was nobody ever built a modern software for rental. So like even when you went into like Blockbuster, even toward the end there, a lot of them were like using like you look over and it's just like the blue screens,
Just like DOS
you know,
prompts and
most
stuff.
basic, yeah, DOS
Yeah,
shit, yeah.
I can believe it because that's what Rent-A-Center did up until I left, and that was within the last 15 years. Like, I mean, we were still backing shit up to like the big like plastic or like big cassette tapes. So
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah, I talked to one guy. That's what he said. He said it's not that we had like his business was dwindling. It was that his software he couldn't run it anymore.
Yeah, and
It's
wasn't
like,
that the
wow,
thing with
okay,
like that last Blockbuster too? Is like they've been like cannibalizing and like trying to get a hold of like new old or not new old stock, but like old stock Blockbuster stuff to like switch out boards and because they just have
huh?
no way
Yeah,
to run it. I don't think, which is amazing. I honestly feel like we're not that far off from being able to run a small boutique rental store. I think it could be profitable. Like,
I mean, in the
I think
bigger
in 10
cities there are
years,
some,
right?
right?
But I think 10 years from now, like you're gonna start seeing them pop up even in like cities like the size of Fargo because the novelty of it will be the
Yeah,
thing, you know. If really a
yeah.
person
You
should
got to
just be
sell it
going
as an
around to garage
experience,
sales right now and just like bucket loads, right? Like just gather it all up, store it in a warehouse. Cause that you can afford to lose it. You know what I mean? When you're paying 25 cents a piece. But yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. I miss it.
I for a brief moment there, I had the idea that you could have a place like that and then rent out rooms, viewing rooms, you know.
Sure.
But then it was like, oh, that's just going to turn into people just using it for other
Yeah, I
reasons.
was gonna say like you're just one. That's one move adjacent from the curtain room at the old adult
Which
bookstore.
is
And
also very profitable, I bet.
it's funny you say that because I was just thinking about how I don't know why it popped into my head. I think I saw a James Bond thing and it just reminded me of the movie I was watching. But I was thinking back to that theater in my hometown, how like yeah they had couches up in front, you know, like it'd always be like the rush, like the teenage couples would try to get up there like secure a
Mhm.
couch. And then you'd never see them the whole movie, you know, their heads go down,
Yeah.
never come back. But then it also reminded me of the time I went and watched. I don't know what movie it was. It was a James Bond like Pierce Brosnan thing, and it had to have like it must have been old or they'd been running it for a few weeks because they didn't get new movies every week and maybe it was a matinee that we went to. But anyway, it was literally me and my buddy. We're maybe like 12. We're the I shit you not, the only people in the theater. And I leaned over mid movie to make a comment to him. And here the creepy, like fucking video movie theater owner guy chose to sit behind us, like directly behind us, and then scolded me for talking during the movie. I'm like, but we're the only two people here. I'm like, I know you've seen this movie. Like, fuck you. Like such a creep.
Yeah,
I
you could have ran that place. You could have done whatever you wanted in there if you're the only one in there. Wow.
think that place is full of rats and shame.
Hmm.
They did remodel it. I don't know
That's why
why.
it's dark, so it doesn't matter. What you can't
Yes.
see doesn't bother.
Well, yeah, let's get into the good stuff, huh? Should we talk about that Zelda Echoes of Wisdom? Came out on 18th. Was it 18th of September? Somewhere around there, 18th, 19th.
Something like that. Yeah.
So right after the week we recorded, like later that week, the last time. And yeah, they built it off of that Link's Awakening remake engine. They take some ideas from Breath of the Wild and Tears. They take some ideas and staples from, you know, Link to the Past, and they kind of blend it in this weird, fun, old but new kind of way. And it still runs like shit. That engine still really sucks. I still
Yeah.
don't like the screen blurring thing at the top. I do like that it's not screen to screen shifting and that it's, you know, a scrolling screen, but
Yeah.
that engine has some real problems with frame rate. I mean, it's never stable.
Yeah. Which is it's kind of crazy, really. I mean, there's not a lot going on in that game, you
Right.
know. So I don't know what could possibly be. having problems there. But yeah, it it definitely has a different feel. I mean, I'm not very far into it. I beat the basically like the starting area that's teaching you how to do everything.
Yep.
Um, and it's a different way to wrap your head around it. There's definitely some actions that are the same, but they're done differently, right?
Right.
Like she spins instead of a sword and or whatever, you know?
Yep. But then they just kind of do the weird thing of like maybe gotten there, you probably gotten there, but they give you
The,
Link. Like you just like your other ability is to turn into Link on a timer. So like you can
yeah,
still do
yeah.
Linky stuff at but you have to be hyper conservative about it, at least in the early game. Um and I think what's really weird and like you start to notice right away, like obviously you get the Link thing, but that's not sustainable long term. Is that really like you're left with a character that doesn't have a weapon attack? So you're almost like you're given the ability to make these copies, right? Like you copy anything in the game or certain items in the game or enemies, anything you kill, and you can create it to fight for you. So you kind of your combat kind of turns into figuring out like what's the best enemy to send at the other enemies and watch them fight, which is really weird. But then on the other side, it also lets you copy like a bunch of inanimate objects and like it turns out that the solution to 90% of problems in life is just beds. You just spawn beds,
Stacking beds.
sleep
Yeah.
in bed, recover your health, which I didn't learn until this week. I've been playing that game for like hours and I didn't realize that the bed refilled my heart. So I was like just giving all my money to the shake guy to help me make potions to
Oh,
so frustrated by that,
tell me
but
I could sleep on these stairs? Wow.
right. I wish I could sleep on the trampoline. That'd be um yeah, I don't know. It's so that part frustrates me a little bit because it's equal parts cool to have like a traditional style Zelda game and then like just the free form of the Tears or Breath of the Wild, but um it feels like a completely different game when like your every combat encounter requires you to like spawn something and then when you watched I feel like when you watch previews of this game you're like, "Oh, that's cool. They're going to give you like you're going to build up this arsenal of like copy ability stuff." But then within the first hour of the game, you're like, oh no, they're just gonna literally like give you everything. Like you're just gonna have 8,000 things in the first 5 minutes. Well, not 8,000, but you're gonna have like 40 things you can copy in the first hour of this game. And you're like, what the fuck am I gonna do with them? And then you're quickly realizing that they gave you zero options to effectively manage that and like scroll through which items you want to use. Like you can sort it. So you can pick from like most used, last used, newest picked up. But it becomes so exponentially unwieldy. Like I don't know why they didn't come up with a control scheme to where like you could have used the D-pad on the other side. Like I don't know why Link and like that stuff had to be copied over there or why they had to do the like do I need a shoulder button to spin? Couldn't that have just been like a
Mhm.
pull up a hot tab and I would select 5 things from the wheel? Like it desperately needs
Yeah.
I want to map 3 to 5 things that I can just permanently grab on the fly because that sucks.
Yeah. And for the most part, at least what I've seen so far is the 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 enemies that you're copying, they've very much become like deprecated pretty quickly.
Yes.
Where, like obviously a green slime, you need one to kill the first monster, but after
Right.
that, like you're never going to use that thing again. So there
Right.
it is, taking up a spot. There
Well,
might be
then
a
you get the
puzzle
level two
somewhere along
version
the
of it.
way.
Now you got two of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you find one guy you like, and then it's just like, well, I'm just going to use this guy most of the time.
Hmm.
And then you kind of watching that.
Right.
You pull your guy out, and you're watching the guy attack, and you're
Yes.
not paying attention to where you are anymore, which is kind of weird. As you're
Yeah.
the main character in the world, and now you're not even. I don't know.
Yes. It is weird. And the answer to which guy you're going to pull it all the time, at least for the first 2 hours of that game, is spiky flying pineapple guy. Like that. He's
The
the answer
spinning one.
to, yes, to everything for the first
Yeah.
like 3 hours of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That part feels weird, but I'm getting used to it. And I'll take that trade off for traditional dungeons. I love having them back. Um, I loved being thrown off by like just walking into Gerudo Village and like realizing after like 2 to 3 minutes that I didn't need to be cautious because they weren't going to kick me out because I was a woman. So I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to be afraid of the guards. Like I'm already a chick. This is great.
Yeah.
Um, the stamp guy, clearly a pedophile. I dislike his character with an extreme passion. He's very disturbing. I listened to a podcast. Dan Reichert was talking about how much he loved him. I was like, that tracks, but to a normal human being, the stamp guy is like, if he was a real person, he would have a van and he would be luring kids in with candy, is all I can say.
Yeah. So he's like the token Tingle character in this, like the weird.
He's creepier than
there's always
Tingle.
one weird.
I
one.
like Tingle better. Tingle's like your like autistic uncle who dresses up to shop at Toys R Us. Stamp guy is like muscly arm paper boy sort of like I don't like him. I don't like him at all.
Okay. Huh.
When you find him, you'll see what I mean. He leaves an impression. I do like so far too the difficulty curve. It's pretty flat and manageable. I imagine that will change drastically. I've read it's like a 35-hour game. What I'm starting to fall into more is realizing that like I definitely wasn't expanding my brain enough with the options and things that were given to me. I think this game makes it easy, at least early on, to just, like you said, settle into the 2 or 3 abilities and not really think about everything else you have going for you. As you progress, more recently, I've discovered some and like read some things. There's some pretty cool stuff. Like at some point you get a copy ability to like copy like a cubic yard of like water, right? Pretty neat because then you can stack water and you can swim up. Or you could throw a chunk of water down, walk up to a bokoblin, capture him with try holding X and just drag him over to that and like, I don't know, drown him right in front of you like a sadistic bastard. And it's awesome. And it's super effective. And it's stuff that I wouldn't have thought about. So now it's like you just gotta like try like the most absurd thing, or like you tame a bird. Birds like to eat fish, so maybe you throw a bird out, spawn a fish, hold the fish, grab it, and use the move along with object, and that bird is gonna cheese you across all of Hyrule. And you
Really?
can break
Wow.
the and you can break the game. And it's like that kind of stuff that's like, oh my God, I didn't think about trying any of these bonkers combinations, but like especially using the hold thing. Like it took me so long to realize that I should be using hold as a combat mechanic, not a solve a puzzle mechanic. And then hold with the water is like just so satisfyingly disturbing to use. And it doesn't work on every enemy, but man, it's good.
Yeah, there's the whole thing is really tough to wrap your head around a little bit, even in the puzzles where it's like, oh,
yes,
you know, usually in Zelda, you are the ones moving the blocks and doing all this stuff, whereas like this is you're kind of tagging along to all that, which is a little bit different and hard to wrap your head around sometimes.
Yeah, and the fact that you really need to, I mean, you can do it without the target, but like wrapping your head around like using target and the fact that target's kind of clunky and inconsistent, like it makes it weird to feel. It always feels like I'm fighting the controls in this game more than I'm like actively feeling like I'm mastering stuff.
Yeah, and that's probably just due to the access of, you know, the angle and all that that they have for the camera. And I think that's what's probably, you know, if this is, you know, Tears of the Kingdom, you're expecting all of this crazy stuff and combinations and stuff because that's kind of what they pitched. Whereas this, it's like, okay, this is a scaled down.
Yes.
Screen by, I mean, it's not screen by screen, but that same type of map, you know, that you feel. So you feel like you're more locked into something that maybe has extra opportunities.
And there's probably something really to that is like, you know, when we play a game like that, like you're just, your mind goes to Link to the Past and stuff, or A Link Between Worlds. Like you're not in the mindset to be thinking of like, oh, I can exploit everything here. It-
Yeah.
you're in that world that feels like comfortable and like very by the numbers, and this isn't that experience at all.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to get further into it, and I'm excited about it. I'm liking the straightforwardness. I, I love Breath of the Wild. I really appreciated the exponential freedom that Tears gave me, but like that can be kind of be exhausting and frustrating. It's sort of nice to have the thing that's just like, here's where you go. It's gonna unravel in a particular order, and you can still do whatever you want. But yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. It feels very comforting and familiar and updated in most of the right ways. It just has some inventory and play mechanics that are a little clunky, but it's not enough for me to be like off put by it. I don't think this is a. I don't know that I put this in the. And it's maybe too early to say, but like I wouldn't put the up here with like a Link to the Past or, like the best of the best. But I think it's solidly at like an 8 out of 10 for me at this point.
Yeah.
And an 8 out of
I
10 is very good for most games, but it's not great for a Zelda game.
right. Yeah, especially one that it's like the first time you play Zelda, right? It's kind of a big thing. Um,
Right.
I fell off of the Link's Awakening remake pretty fast, so I want I'm still very interested in getting through this one so far, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. I did the first like 3 or 4 dungeons, Link's Awakening, and then my son took over the save file and finished it on his own. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, whatever.
Mhm.
Like, I know how that
Yeah.
ends, so it's fine. Yeah. I do plan to finish this. This will probably be the one game I beat this year, and or substantial game because I just don't have time to get through stuff. So I've been
Yeah.
this has been my pull out the switch, lay in bed, put an hour in, in evening before I go to sleep. So
Yeah.
I hope it gets cooler, but I feel like I kind of know what I'm in for. But
I you know, I guess we could move along to our next.
oh yes, the old staff picks.
Yeah. Um
You can see what
let's
yours
go for
was.
it. Yeah, I can go first.
Oh yeah,
Mine's a board game called Freelancers.
nice.
And this is it's a very light um D&D style where you're creating a character, but even nothing in it is serious, and it's very like really low stakes. And even like the character creator is just like asking you questions, and you basically do Mad Libs on it.
Okay.
So you like pick a role, and then you pick a character, and then yeah, you've answered some questions. Your story becomes like a Mad Lib at that point from it. And then yeah, it's pretty much entirely in an app, which is just at a web
Oh,
page. And it's got really good voice acting, and it's probably the funniest board game out there. Maybe it's the writing is very good. It's really hilarious.
so the app is the companion piece to the board game, like a physical board game, or is it all digital?
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
It's a companion piece, but it's definitely required. That's the thing that
sure.
like drives the story. You have to like input what happened.
So
If you
does the app act as the dungeon master essentially?
yeah, pretty much. Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. It's pretty much that. And then as you gain levels in certain aspects or skills, I should say, you get to roll bigger dice. So, you do your checks to see like, oh, if it rolled over 15 or whatever, then, succeeded or whatever. And yeah, every scenario that you're going into, it's really funny. Um it's built on a system that they've built a few games like this, and I don't know if all of them are in the comedy genre, kind of. This is definitely in that. But I believe a lot of the other games, it's called the Crossroads system. They make other games,
Okay.
and I think it's all probably using the same type of app infrastructure. Um, but there's like 7 different like little dials and little things you have to keep track of, and you can kind of dole them out to be like, oh, one person's the map person and one person is the book person, you know. So it's a little bit, it's kind of fun to add that to your character too, to be like, I'm, the map, yelling at the map person because we went the wrong way or whatever. But
This is not a cheap game. $60 I'm seeing. 40 on sale.
oh yeah, yeah, I think I bought it on sale probably $30.
You
I
find
want
it
to say
at Target or
it
online?
was. Where did I get it? No, it was GameNerds.com, which usually has one big sale every year, and it
Okay.
was on that, I believe.
Interesting. Yeah, this sounds cool
So
because like obviously after we watched um Stranger Things as a family, like everyone was like, "Ooh, D&D." And I'm like, "Yeah, but
we,
like, having to like learn everything and be the but like
mm,
if the app is going to do most of that stuff for you, then that sounds pretty sweet."
oh yeah, this is yeah. If you want to do something like that, this is like a great like entry into that, and
Okay.
it's really self explanatory on how it all works, and it's hilarious, and yeah,
Yeah, this sounds
it's
like
really
one I might
funny.
have to put on my short list to try and track down.
I
That's
think the
cool.
voice actor in it is. I think he does a lot of stuff. He sounds really familiar. I want to say he's like in some animes
Okay.
that does like dubs or the dub ones, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Pretty easy for
Um,
kids to pick up too, or
oh yeah, yep.
yeah.
It's yeah, it's pretty easy. And the roles, the characters are funny, and the roles, you have your standard like warrior and bard and thief and stuff like that. But then there's ones
Yep.
that are just like divorcee and just like other random just stuff. And then as you go, there's certain spots on the map that you can go to that are called crossroads, and those before you start the game, you enter what roles you have. So then they specifically have stories that come up for each different role, and there's
Okay.
like some side stories to each character, and
Hmm.
it's pretty good how some of those get and early on, like there's a spot that you start early on and you have to go to it. And even as simple as something that asking you if you want profanity in it or not
Sure.
is like all story based.
Interesting.
So like if like we had kids, so we didn't do the profanity thing. And I think Amanda got a title that was like the most reserved or something. You usually get titles across the game, and it's kind of funny seeing them the whole collection at the end.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. How long does a round take?
Uh we started kind of at night, so we went straight to the end of the map where we were supposed to go.
Yep.
And I think that was 2 hours, probably maybe two and
Okay.
a half. Um, and the maps you can go 100 other different places on the map too, which I'm sure has a lot more story to it. But
Sure.
we kind of mainlined it due to the time we had.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds interesting. I'm gonna keep an eye on that one. Sounds cool. I like the app idea too.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, my staff pick. I might have mentioned it on the show before. This is kind of a new thing, but an old thing. Um, so I don't know if anyone out there has heard of the Goblin metal band Necrogoblicon, which makes goblin themed metal music and proggish rock. They sound like you would expect. They kind of went viral with their music videos and blew up, like millions and millions of views on YouTube. Um, and the guy who's in all of their music videos and their lead singer, air quoting, he's always in full goblin attire and dressed up, and he's John Goblicon. And then prior to the pandemic, as like kind of like a side promotion for the band, because they got the YouTube following off the music videos, they did like the show called Right Now with John Goblikon, which was kind of like a live studio show with like the band as the house band. And they would get like weird comedians and stuff on there. And it was filmed like a talk show. And then obviously post pandemic that went away, but they just rebooted it like last week. And they still, so
Oh.
it's now a podcast format, lower production costs. So it's still John Goblikon, and he's been interviewing people. He started off with Andrew Santino. It was fucking hilarious. And he's got this, I forget the name of Joshua or whatever. Like he's the in studio podcast editor who's like Swedish, and they just like shit on him the whole time. Like Andrew Santino just basically like ate a breakfast burrito through the whole thing. It's like an hour and a half of like the most ridiculous shit. Cause like he plays the John Goblikon character, just like the guy never breaks character. So it's just like, and then the whole bit in the first episode was amazing because he's just like, oh, don't worry, we're not going to cut any of this out. We're going to cut all this out. He's like, but when we get started with this episode, and he does that like 45 times throughout the whole thing. So it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. And I watched the second episode tonight. John, was it somebody Holmes, another comedian, you'd recognize his face. He wasn't as good, but I don't know that for one, Necrogoblikon is like right up my alley, and this John Goblikon character I find extremely hilarious, and the podcasts are super funny, and Santino couldn't have been a better guest to like reboot the whole thing. You know, they just like the running bit too is like just shitting on Bobby Lee, because Bobby Lee had been on the other iteration of the show and like just been Bobby Lee and like super disrespectful. So they're just talking about like what an asshole Bobby is. It's so good. I highly recommend it. You have to look on, well, you can search for Right Now, but you just search for Necrogoblikon on YouTube, and it's all under there. And then watch some of the music videos too, because they're great. So
yep,
it's just,
I've seen those.
Yes,
that
everybody dies.
That talk show was pretty funny.
Yeah,
I remember seeing some of that.
I loved the talk show, so I was like super happy to see that they rebooted it. So,
that's funny.
Yeah. Yes, it's, I don't know. It's right up my alley. I mean, as a Metalocalypse fan too, this is pretty much perfect. So.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it.
Right.
Same.
It's
same
the same
genre.
idea. Yep. 100%.
If you're having a good time with us at Weekend Rental, I think you might enjoy all the great geeky stuff found on the Geekade Podcast Network. They've got podcasts about games, music, movies, and more. Plus, if you order off their secret menu, also known as the Geekade Patreon, you just might find an exclusive movie podcast hosted by Ryan and myself. Check it out over at geekade.com. And hey, if you'd like to turn Weekend Rental into a true multimedia experience, our YouTube and Twitch channels might just be for you.
Well, I suppose it's probably time to get to that Weekend Rental, huh?
Yeah, let's get to the real Zelda game we're talking about, right?
This is the most traditional of the Zelda games we'll be talking about today. So we are doing the Weekend Rental. We play a game for a given system. We were talking about the Master System, Mark III, this go around, the Sega Master System. We played Golden Axe Warrior, which is not what you'd think based on the name. It is not the traditional hack and slash Golden Axe, which that got ported to console as well. But this is Sega's answer, very late answer in the 8-bit world of, we can do Zelda 2. We can make a Zelda game just like that Zelda game on the old Nintendo from, 7 years prior, probably. This game came out in 91. So it was after Zelda had been out. It was after Newtopia, which is the PC Engine's answer to Zelda. And really,
same year as Link to the Past,
right?
In Japan, at least. So.
Yeah, and the Genesis came out in 89. So this thing is very late and very formulaic to what the first Zelda game
Yep. It's a screen by screen, 15 by 15 grid of screens that you can go across. And yeah, you start off in a village. Got to go find the dungeon.
Yes.
Got to go get 9 crystal balls.
You go down familiar ladder chutes and find familiar old men in caves with torches. And
Yep.
the very first dungeon I came across looked exactly like dungeon entrances in the original Zelda.
Hmm.
Um, I thought what I really liked though was like the detail they put into the characters when you would go into the villages, like the shopkeepers and stuff, or like main characters, and it would like pull up a whole separate screen with like this like incredibly out of place and detailed like portrait of the person you're talking to,
Yep.
which couldn't further be distanced from any resemblance to what you see in the 8-bit version. But like really cool that they went to that level, because it's not needed, but it surprised me. I was like, oh, like they put some time into this. So
Yeah, and they're not like normal looking people either. Like that old guy, he's seen
yes,
some shit.
he's
He's
Gandalf.
gruff. Yes, he's it's very much yeah, very Conan the Barbarian style of kind of, I don't know, realism
Yes.
to what they're trying to perceive it to be. But yeah, the enemies too. I mean, they're just,
Straight
you got your
Zelda.
moblins, you got your you got your
Yep.
slimes, you got
The
your Octorok looking things, and yeah,
pause
it's
menu will be instantly familiar as far as like where the inventory breakdown is, how the map
mhm,
looks, all of that. They didn't dance around the source material that they were inspired by.
mhm, that is for sure. Um, However, there is a lot of golden axe in here.
Yeah,
Um, the golden axe characters do show up. You do see them. You get different equipment from them. The magic is all. I mean, a lot of the magic looks just like the ones that you use in the golden axe beat 'em ups. So it's cool that they were able to tie in some of that
yep.
to, you know.
The
And
potion
spoiler,
drops
there
is
is a
like
golden axe.
potion drop is the first thing that I was immediately like, oh, I've seen that before. That potion's this is golden axe now. You know what I mean?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. I I really liked well, and you said this changes later game. You got much further. You beat this thing. Full disclosure, I did not beat this thing. I got a couple hours in, wandered around a good part of like the lower half of the game. Um, I liked the fact that when you'd go to an area and clear it of enemies, like the screen of enemies, that they wouldn't respawn. And then you could just die and continue right back, like sometimes from the
Mhm.
same screen, depending on where you're at. So you always kind of had like this path forward, at least in the early game, of where like, well, I know this is the direction I was going because I've cleared everything on this screen. And it was a nice way to kind of like feel like you were getting progression and not be immediately frustrated by the difficulty. Where I think that was one thing when you play the original Legend of Zelda, as you're like learning and wandering and you're just like constantly dying and like you leave a screen and come back or get knocked back, you're right back into that fight.
Yep,
It felt really satisfying with that little change to be able to like clear a good portion of the game and like not have to retread back through. I liked
yep.
that.
And there's a lot of times where I'd go in a screen and there was a lot of guys and I'd kill a couple of them and then I'd be like, I have to retreat
Yes.
back and reset a
Yep.
little bit. So that was nice. And those do respawn after a while. I'm not sure if it just keeps a certain number of like screens that you've cleared in memory.
Sure.
But if you are trying to go a certain direction, usually it's enough to, like you said, it feels like it's cleared all the way toward the area you're trying to get to.
Hmm.
So it does feel good to just cruise on over there then.
Yeah, I really liked that. I mean, it's a simple change, but a nice one. I wish they would have found a way to like to avoid the pitfalls of the traditional like original Zelda, where it's just like pixel perfect. Like you lining up with enemies in like a free space is so. I mean, it's same with Zelda, but it's just
Yep.
I wish they would have found a better way to handle that. Like that they had the time to figure out a solution to make that work.
Did you end up getting the axe?
Yep, I did, and that
Okay,
helped
so
because
the
then yeah,
axe
you can clear a big area.
yeah, it kind of does a swipe across the kind of the surrounding areas, which really help in some cases.
Yeah.
But then your sword ends up becoming so much more powerful than your axe does that you're resorting back to your sword most of the time because the characters and that's another thing they change color. So the green ones and then
Right.
there's blue ones and then there's some red ones. So you kind of know like, hey, I'm not supposed to be here yet. You know,
Right.
like this is area I shouldn't be yet.
Yeah, that's a really cool indicator.
Yeah. Um, this has a ton of bullshit though, where you know Zelda has some of those too. You know, where you gotta find the one thing that does this one. You know,
Burn the
unlock a
bush
door to
on this
this or whatever.
screen.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
But this one just has a lot more, and a lot of it is tied to upgrades to like your sword and your armor and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, so that part was like I can't imagine playing this without a guide. There's just no way you would have found that stuff, I don't think. I mean, there's some exploration you can find some of the stuff, but some of them are very convoluted and, you know, chopping down a whole forest to get to one pixel that you didn't even know that you could get to before. Yeah. It's
Well, that was, yeah, even
it's
some
more
of my
Star Tropics.
yeah, that was my frustration too. And I was like texting you about it today because like I had gotten the axe in that dungeon, but like there were two doors that like didn't require keys. I was like, so I did the normal Zelda thing of like I went to every room and I pushed on every block I could think of, and then you're like, yeah, I think you might have to like hit a candle. Like I never thought to go around like smack every candle or put like why.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I should have, but at that point I was just like, I'll take my upgrade of the axe and just go explore now, and that's what I went and did. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so what are the
I
boss fights like when you can get into a boss? Are they like one room, like thing sits in place? Do they move around?
they do move around. Some of them do. Some of them are easier than others. There's some that are pretty annoying. The trouble I found was that a lot of them you really wanted to use your there's a magic, a thunder magic that is basically like the ranged attack that Zelda has or Link has when he's full powered. That
Sure.
is not present in this game. You have to use a magic, and that consumes some of the magic bottle to do that. So you basically do the entire dungeon without using magic because you don't know when the boss is going to come around and you want to be full of magic.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like, give me give me a save point before that refills it. You know, at least let me know that I can burn my magic in the dungeon
Sure.
itself. But yeah, once you get that, there's a lot of them that are pretty easy because you can just sit there and kind of shoot. There's one of them that I kind of didn't even leave the doorway and he couldn't touch me. So I kind of spam him a couple times.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, the end of this game though really turns into a slog because you do get upgrades, you know, where you get a sword that does more damage and armor that takes less damage. But the very small sliver of time that you feel like you've upgraded is I mean, it's so short. You're in the next dungeon and now you got people that are doing more damage to you. So it all equals out the same. Sure, I can go back to the original village and kill all the green guys in one hit, but what's the point of that? Because there's nothing there anymore to do, right?
Right. So it's kind of worthless because you wouldn't want to go back. Anyway.
Yep. Yep. And then yeah, the character the enemies they give they do more damage, but also they get more just annoying to deal with. There's a lot more of like ones that'll just like transport to different areas of the screen,
Yes.
and then you try and run up there and hit them, and then they're gone, and then
Even early on, like they're just like it's so much more brutal with like bats, like the pattern that bats take.
yeah,
Too big,
yeah,
too fast, and like there's so many overworld things that just like spin all over. Yeah, I can
yep.
only imagine how that escalated later on.
There's one that prompted me that I said, either I'm quitting right now or I'm turning cheats on to finish this game
Hmm.
because one of the dungeons has these shells. They're little clams, basically,
Yeah.
and they come after you and they attack you, but you can only hit them while they're facing you, and they're pretty fast, especially the ones toward the end of the game. So all of a sudden, you got like 5 of them just kind of clamoring around everywhere in the screen, and you're trying to go over there and hit them, but half the time you're not doing any damage because they're just randomly not looking at you, or
Of course.
it's an awful experience. Those, I don't know how, I suppose you could maybe kite them somehow and pick them off one by one, but at that point I was just like, I just need to see the end of this game. So I did turn off cheats,
Sure.
and then had unlimited magic, which was nice because
Just
then
like
I could
walked into
really,
rooms and just like blasted everything off the screen.
right. And that's what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to be able to use my magic. That's what it was there for, but I just never felt like I could the whole game,
Sure.
because you never knew when you actually needed it.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's one cool area by the volcano. You get a item called an ice bell, which basically turns, you use it on the screen and the whole screen just turns to ice. So you can walk across the lava. Everything on the screen is just instantly dead.
Nice.
That was like the one part of this game where I felt like, okay, I am badass now. The rest of them was just like, I felt like I was struggling half the time.
What was the total playthrough time like with the guide?
It was probably about 6 hours I probably spent on it.
Okay. Wow.
It's not too bad.
That's a pretty good commitment though for Byron Burn.
Yeah. I yeah.
It is really engaging though, like almost from the outset. Like I was really like I was at the point though with you though where I knew I was gonna have to open up a wiki or a walkthrough because it
Mhm.
was very clear that they very much stuck to old 8-bit era hard bullshit.
Yep. Call the hotline
Yes.
things. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's really a cool game to see on the Master System, which I don't know that it does anything to like push the Master System. I suppose maybe the level or like the world design, but like Master System is capable of like some amazing graphics and there's some cool stuff in
Mhm.
here. But the overworld isn't too much more densely detailed than I mean it's definitely not Utopia levels of detail, but I don't know.
No.
I mean,
It's
it's good, but lacking
yeah.
at the same time. Yeah,
Yeah. It's just like Zelda where it's just, a
basic.
sprite grid on everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it feels instantly like Zelda when you play it. Um,
mhm.
well, what do you think? I mean, what would you give it on the Byron Burn scale then?
I think uh hmm, I'm doing this as a total like a look back at this game as for what it was. I think in 1991 I probably would have been disappointed if I got this and my friends had Link to the Past shortly after that. Be like, okay, it's not even
Sure.
in the same ballpark of what this game is. But for an 8-bit Zelda clone, I think it ranks up there pretty decently high. Because it really is just trying to be Zelda. It's not trying to do other things. Like we've had Star Tropics before, which is kind of
Sure.
trying to do a little bit of that, but it tries to do its own thing.
Hmm.
So I think I'll probably give this one a buy, even all the bullshit included. Um, if I did get it as a kid, I guess I would be happy now since it's like a $200 cartridge now. So
Yeah.
that's how those go.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo your rating. I would give this a buy. I think on the platform that it's on, it fills a niche that it needed. There isn't a deep library on Master System, and to tie it into a pretty killer property that Sega had at the time, like Golden Axe was a big deal on the Genesis and the arcade. Yeah, I don't think it does anything truly unique or remarkable, but it is a very good original clone of that first Zelda game. And yeah, I'd be pretty happy to sink more time into it, and I probably would have been like, really happy if that was my only console at the time. And but you can tell that like this game is expensive now for a reason because like everything we laid out,
Yeah.
like the timing of where competing hardware was at, Sega's own competing platform being out. I gotta wonder, like, I wonder if this released earlier in Japan, like, and we got a late port too. Maybe
That could
not
be.
though. I don't know, but I don't know. It is very well done and it's fun. And like you said, there's the usual 8-bit bullshit, but yeah, I really enjoyed playing through it. I thought it was immediately familiar and immediately familiar with one of the greatest franchises of all time is a good thing. So
Right. And that's a cool part about it, is taking something from a genre and like turning it into a Zelda and still have it feel like you're in that world. I mean,
yeah,
see the dwarf guy. Wow.
I just wish there was more like gnome beatings happening on screen, but can't have everything.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I suppose that's another episode down, huh?
Yeah, that is. Now I can get back to the new Zelda game.
No,
So
no,
I'm
you
pretty
you need
excited
to get
about that.
back to running your video game store and
Oh, yeah.
de
Yeah.
sanitizing those stinky people.
Yep. Or sorry, my own Blockbuster or mom and pop video store. Sorry.
Yes, priorities.
Mm-hmm. That game would be so boring. You're just checking the return bin all the time, and just that'd be not that fun, I don't think. But
Right.
yeah, we're on YouTube. This will be on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
if you want to see our face.
Mm-hmm.
We're on YouTube.
You,
We also do some Twitch streams
you can
every
watch the
once in a while.
recap of our last one on YouTube right now. The gimmick one
Yeah,
is there.
Mr. Gimmick.
If you
It is
love
there.
rewind features and emulators, that's the stream for you.
Yes. If you think your video is glitching on YouTube, it is not.
we're very sorry. It's a difficult game. Cut us some slack.
Yeah. Yeah. We're on Twitter too. Weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com is our email.
Mm-hmm.
And then until next time, be kind, rewind.
Bananas.